What's up guys, it's Drifts and Lifts here. I'm going out for a rip because I like oversteer. Yeah. Alright guys, so today we are at Post Haste Performance and we're going to do some Volvo motor swapping. So just yesterday I brought over the red block that was sitting in my garage, hauled it over here in my parents' truck because none of my Volvos are working right now. Goldie, the water pump let go on it, and Black Wagon's motor's blown, and as you guys know, the A tractor is off the road right now. So hopefully today we can get one of my Volvos going. We're hoping to get this motor in. Not sure if we'll complete it today, but I'm going to document the whole swap, start to finish, essentially all the different things. This is my first time doing a motor swap on a Volvo. I know you guys are probably thinking like, oh, he's probably swapped tons of motors before. But no, I've actually, every time I blow a motor on a Volvo, I just buy a new car. So yeah, it'll be pretty fun. See how it goes. I'll try to do a pretty in detail kind of step-by-step, you know, everything it takes to do a motor swap. As far as motor swaps go, this is a pretty easy one to do. You know, it's a pretty old style motor and there's not a whole lot of things to disconnect. Say compare it to like a GTR Skyline or something, this would be a lot more technical, a lot more things to disconnect. So yeah, hope you guys liked the video. Should be a fun time, sort of. Alright, so first step. We got the wagon in the garage, I guess that's the first step. So what we're going to do is essentially take off everything surrounding the motor. And on these cars, you know, you look at a motor sitting in this engine bay, it's like, where do I start? So where I'm going to start is I'm going to take out the intercooler, all the assorted piping for the intercooler. I'm going to take out the radiator, so a couple hoses. The radiator and the intercooler actually just sit in here, so they don't, they're not really like held in by anything, other than these two, the top clips that go right on here. So yeah, I'm going to take all that, then I'm going to take the air box out, and then what I'm going to do is probably take off the intake manifold just so I can get to all the wiring harness and everything, and I can take it out and basically put it aside in a place that I'm going to remember where everything goes once I put the new motor in. So yeah, I also got to take off the fuel line here. Yeah, I'm going to kind of go, I'm going to go with it as I slowly make my way through this, because you know, usually you'll get to something, you think you've taken off everything and there's, you know, a vacuum line or something like that still holding it before you can actually take the motor out. So yeah, once I get everything, I'll show you guys what it looks like once that's all off. So alright guys, so it's about 10 minutes later now, and as you can see, once you get the, you know, the turbo air box, the grill, the intercooler piping, and the radiator and the intercooler out, the engine bay becomes pretty open. So looking down here, I guess the next step, what I want to do is take out all this front AC condenser. Usually I take that out on all my cars anyways. You know, the AC never works on these cars, so it's good to just take it out. You can get actually quite a bit of weight reduction by taking your AC compressor out. AC condenser and compressor. So the condenser is the radiator looking thing, and the compressor is that big bulky piece of metal down there. So on the new motor there isn't an AC compressor, which is good. I won't have to remove that. So yeah, I guess next I'm gonna take all that out, and then I'm gonna take this rad support off right here. So then that's gonna give us a ton of room in the front to remove the engine. So I've been thinking of what way we're gonna do this, and I think me and Dan have agreed on we're gonna detach the transmission from the engine instead of pulling them out together. I don't know, that way I don't have to remove all the shifter linkage and all the stuff in the interior to pull the actual transmission out as well. So lining that up once we're all said and done might be a tad tricky, but we should be able to get it done. It shouldn't be too hard. So what I'm going to do now is take off the intake manifold and all the stuff in the front here, and then I'll be able to look at my wires and I'll be able to unplug the sensors that I need. On this engine I believe there's only, so there's going to be the injector wiring, and you got the engine coolant temp sensor under the intake manifold. There's also a coolant I believe it's a coolant temperature gauge, or no, maybe that's the one on the rad. One of them's a knock sensor, one's coolant temp sensor, and I forget what the other one is. If we look under here, oh yeah, we also got the idle air control valve. I'm actually going to delete that. I'll show you guys what I do when I do that. So yeah, I'll start pulling all that stuff off and then show you guys once I'm done. Alright, I got a little bit ahead of myself here, so I'll let you guys know where I'm at now. So I got all the AC condenser and all that stuff out of the front. I took all the assorted pipes out for the air conditioning system, so that's all out now. So what I did is I removed the intake manifold. I figured it'd be a lot easier to get to the wiring harness that way. So here's all of our injector wires. Here is, I forget what that one's for, but this one here is for the coolant temp sensor, and then throttle position sensor is this one over here. So I kind of got to just remember where those are. The harness is going to kind of stay where it is. So now the next step, what we're going to do is disconnect the power steering pump from the whole engine. It would be, I figure it's easier to do that. Dan recommended this. He remove the pump rather than removing these lines that look like they're seized in the pump. So that way you don't make, you know, if I strip the bolts or the nuts, or then it won't make it such a pain in the ass to get it on the other pump. So yeah, taking the pump off is just these 3 bolts. So we got one right there, one on the bottom, and one up top here. So that's just going to come separate from the motor. Then I got to undo the engine mounts. I actually ordered a new set of engine mounts, so they should be in about an hour from now at Lordco. So that'll be good because these engine mounts are really bad. Yeah, the motor was shaking all over the place in here. So yeah, I'm going to do the power steering pump, remove the engine, the nuts off the engine mounts, and then what I'm going to do is disconnect the bell housing from the motor, and basically we're just going to pull the motor out separate from the tranny like I said earlier. So yeah, we almost have everything disconnected. This is, you know, I've probably been tinkering here for a good hour, so it doesn't take all that long to pull everything off. This is, like I said, an easier motor to do this on. So yeah, I'm going to take this this belt off, get the pump off, and we'll get to our next step. We're pretty close to pulling the motor out actually, to be honest. Okay guys, so I got the power steering pump off. Sorry, I kind of gave you guys wrong guidance. You don't need to remove this nut right here. All it is the one bolt going through the bottom of the pump, right, if I check right down there. And this bolt is the, or this, yeah, this bolt right here is the only one. So it's actually only two bolts holding the power steering pump in, which is pretty easy. So yeah, I disconnected the nuts from the engine mounts, and now I'm just working my way at getting all the bell housing bolts out. So what we're gonna do is leave the starter in. So I'm actually gonna leave this starter, just flop it off to the side and then put it in the other motor rather than taking the whole starter with it. What else do we got to do? So yeah, I disconnected everything from the alternator, so no wires are attached. We're basically good as far as all of our harness and wires go. That's all disconnected, and yeah, I just need to do all the bell housing bolts, and we're basically ready to pull this thing. So yeah, I'll do that and then start filming when we're ready to pull it. Actually, before I get to our next step, guys, I wanted to show you this. The guy that I had this car off before mentioned that he got the head ported, and looking at it, he wasn't lying. It looks like someone's been in there. It's definitely been ported out a bit, and just the way this isn't perfectly circular, it just looks like someone's touched it before. So maybe they actually put bigger valves in it and stuff. That would have been really cool, because this will be, you know, the black wagon, I'm not exactly building to be, you know, a high horsepower. It's more of just a clean cruiser. It's going to be able to drift. I'll put modded knuckles and those kind of things in it, but it's nothing going to, as far as power goes, it's not going to be too crazy. I'm just going to run this motor with the stock turbo and you know, 14 pounds of boost on the stock injector. Just keep it pretty simple and reliable. But this motor has the ported head on it, so hey, maybe that's something I could put in Goldie down the road. Keep it 8 valve, go with this head. It doesn't look like it's been ported too heavily, but hey, it's something. So I could go with this head and put my RSI stage 2 cam in Goldie, and you know, hopefully we can make another 30 wheel horsepower, maybe 40. It's tough to say. So that'll be down the road. We'll do that on another episode. All right guys, so where we are now, everything's disconnected. There's Dan.
Did not want to be in this.
Camera shy.
Pointing it the other way.
Okay, so yeah, we got everything out. Engine mounts are disconnected. Power steering's off. All the wiring's out. So basically all we're doing right now, all the bell housing bolts are out. Dan is just trying to separate the motor from the bell housing because we're going to leave the transmission in there while we pull the motor. That way we don't have to mess with the shifter linkage and everything. It's tough to say what would have been easier, but we're just going to go with this way. So it's almost out, guys. As you can see, it's like, you know, really loose. So as soon as this cracks and starts lifting up, it'll start coming out. All right, guys, so that is the engine and it's coming out. So yeah, it was just a little bit stuck on the bell housing. I don't think this transmission's been off this motor in a long time, if ever. So yeah, I just need a little bit of help. So she's coming out. And as far as I can see, oh, we got one more thing connected here, whatever the fuck this is. Yeah, see guys, as you start pulling out a motor, you start to see things that you missed from disconnecting. And we definitely have one right here. So there we go, guys. That's a Volvo red block extracted from a 740. It's quite something. This camera shot actually makes the turbo look a bit bigger than it is. I guess this is the 12B turbo. Right on. So there we go. As far as these two engines, they're identical. This one over here is I believe this one's from an 87, and then obviously this motor's an 89. They're both the 9mm rod motors, and yeah, they're basically the exact same spec. Looking at it, it actually looks like this motor right here did have a ported head after all. So not extreme. There's not big extent to the porting that was done, but it's ported nonetheless. So like I said, one day potentially could be put on Goldie. So there we go, guys. Now the re of this is basically the reverse of what I just did. So I got a bunch of things I'm going to swap over from this motor. I'm going to put I got to grab a coolant line, or sorry, an oil line from this motor and put it on this one. I need to take the distributor off and a couple other things, and then it's ready to go in. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do right now. All right guys, so we are back at Post Haste for day 2 of the Black Wagon motor swap. So yeah, we got most of the stuff done yesterday as far as taking out the motor and prepping this motor to go back in. This motor had been sitting in my garage for a pretty long time, probably about like 2 years now. So over that time, slowly I sometimes took a few parts off it just when I needed something for another car. So there's quite a few things that we're going to be swapping over. Yeah, so we got to put the turbo on and like the thermostat and little things like that. Other than that though, actually we also got to do the clutch and the flywheel, so that's another thing. Once we're all done that though, she'll be ready to go back in, and then it's the whole reverse the whole reverse thing of what we did yesterday. So that's going to be pretty fun. All right, so now we're on to our next step here. I got all the accessories onto the new motor. So we actually, this turbo's, I guess you could say, a bit of an upgrade because this is the 13C from the 1990 plus models, and we also put a 90 manifold on it. So you know, it's said to flow a little bit better. Not that it makes much of a difference, but yeah, so I think we got everything on the motor. We have the flywheel, pressure plate, clutch, that kind of thing. So it's ready to go back in. I'll also mention that I replaced the engine mounts on it. They're pretty pricey. These are like the stock hydraulic mounts. I think what did I pay for them, like 65 bucks a mount. It's pretty aggressive. but that's all they had, and I didn't feel like making up some like hockey puck mounts at the time. So hey, that's all good. Those will do just fine. So we're ready to put this red block into that wagon. So I guess we'll do that. All right, so there we go, guys. The motor is now in the car. So yeah, it's rested nicely on the engine mounts, and we got a bell housing bolt or two in. So the transmission's matted up nicely to the motor. So now it's just a puzzle piece of putting all back together. Just all the wiring, the accessories, power steering pump, the whole front. So now I'm just going to tinker with this and slowly make my way. I'll say this, I know this isn't a super detailed instructional vid of how to swap a motor, every last nut and bolt, but it gives you an idea of kind of, you know, what it actually takes in a short form to do a motor swap on one of these cars. And as you can see, it's not too much stuff, you know what I mean? Like in total, I probably took off like 15 things, including wiring and stuff, to get the motor out, and maybe a little more than that, 20 separate things or whatever. So yeah, you know, actually this is my first time ever doing a motor swap on a car, like I said. So on a red block at least, never done a Volvo. So I'd say this is one of the easier cars to do. So I guess I'm gonna get to work just putting all this stuff back together, and hopefully we might even be able to see this thing run today. I got to do an oil change on it because this motor's been sitting in my garage for a long time, and I think it has a little bit of, you know, rusty corrosion in the head and stuff like that. So I'm gonna run a bunch of water and coolant through it, dump it, run another bit of distilled water in it, and kind of clean it out that way. And then yeah, before you know it, this thing's gonna be ready to rock, and I'm pretty stoked. So I'm stoked to see how it runs after this motor's been sitting in my garage for so long. So gravy beads. All right, guys, so after essentially 2 whole days of wrenching here at Post Haste Performance, I finally have everything buttoned up, or so I think. This is gonna be the first start. So yeah, I kind of forgot to film a little bit there, so I didn't go through every last little bit. But obviously putting the motor back together and putting it in the car just means, you know, buttoning everything up and doing the reverse of what you did to take it out. And like I said, not too many things on this motor. So we're gonna hold it right there, and I'm gonna attempt to start this car. So I just put fresh oil in it and some water. That head had been sitting in my garage for a long time, so I think that you know, there's a lot of like corrosion and stuff that built up in the head and the coolant passageways. So yeah, I'm gonna park the camera right over here and try to start this thing. Guys, it seems like the old girl runs. Not too bad either. Yeah. And that's a Skyline GTR. All right, guys, so that is a wrap up of our video. I'd say pretty successful for my first motor swap. It started up first try essentially. We had a bit of a coolant leak and then Dan tackled that. It just needed to be tightened up a bit on the turbo. So yeah, where do we go from there? I'd like to give a big thanks to Dan and Helen here at Post Haste Performance for letting me use the shop and help me out with this. Couldn't do it without them. So make sure you guys check out their website. That's going to be in the description of this video. So I'm just going to put it, the link to their site, description of this video. So check it out. If you guys have any things you need tuned, any sort of car work, all that stuff, Dan is the man. He tuned my Gold car and made me snap transmissions on the regular. So he can also tune Volvos. So make sure you check him out. So yeah, guys, that's basically it. So things to come for the channel. Now that the black wagon has a new motor and it is driving now, that means I'm going to put insurance on this thing in a day or two, and then I'm going to get into the mod process that I originally had planned. So that means, cut springs, modified knuckles. I'm going to leave the motor pretty stock. I don't think I need too much more power in this thing. It's going to be more of like a cruiser, daily drift car kind of thing. So I'm going to try to keep it pretty clean. The A tractor, as far as that goes, I know it's been off the road a little while now. I'm really going to try to take it to a drift event pretty soon here. I know you guys missed that car, and I really do too. I guess it's a truck, not a car now. So yeah, I really want to take that to a drift event. So that's going to happen in the near future here. So as far as Goldie, I'm probably going to put that in the garage for a little bit while I go to the black wagon and do things on that. And yeah, so that's what you guys can expect from the channel. Obviously more street drifting videos to come. I'm always going to be doing that. Can't get me off the streets, but make sure you keep it safe if you're street drifting. Go to the right spots. Don't drift while people are there, that kind of thing. So anyways, guys, that's it. Like and subscribe for overgrown Volvo hair. Peace out.